Ron, they include anybody that happens to be in your state.
Well, California would lose like 5 seats if they did a fair census. And even beyond that, the Biden census gypped Florida of at least 1 seat. We only got 1 seat in the last census. Are you trying to tell me that Florida only had 1 seat in that? We should have had at least 2. Texas should have had another one. That could be the difference in the House of Representatives and the majority. So I would love for them to redo the census for 26. My legislature will redistrict those lines. We'll get it to where it's fair. But as it's right now, this country is not fairly apportioned. I've got so many more millions of people in Florida that have representation because of that flawed census.
Mr. President, I think it's going to do very well. A lot of people, I don't know if you've heard about it, it's captivated the country. Everybody wants it. It's going to get in, it's going to pass, and we're going to be...
One of the big things is it helps decide congressional maps.
Right.
Does this have everything to do with redistricting?
Well, it does. In fact, we know the 2020 census, the errors were almost always to the detriment of red states. Blue states like Rhode Island...
Do we know that?
We do know that. The Census Bureau's own audit of its work has proven that. Blue states like Rhode Island were overcounted. Rhode Island then didn't lose a seat. Red states like Alabama were undercounted. Listen, this is just a fact. It wasn't all red-blue, but it was disproportionately red-blue.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So we got to talk about President Trump's call to put the final nail in the Democrat Party coffin, because like I told you guys, Democrats have basically a couple years to win a major national election, or else it's over for their party. If they don't win midterms, it is hard for me to imagine Democrats winning again for the next 10 years straight. And this is why they're now boo-hoo, whining, crying, and they're in full-blown panic mode over the Republicans deciding to redistrict their states in order to expand the GOP House majority, because the House and the Electoral College is already rigged against Republicans in favor of Democrats, just due to the fact that the census in 2020 was done incorrectly. It overestimated the population of blue states, underestimated the population of red states. Also, on top of that, they're counting illegals, which also heavily benefit blue states. And that is why President Trump is now calling for a new census that excludes the illegals. And if this happens, again, this is basically the Democrats' worst nightmare come true.
The FBI is now getting involved in the case of those Texas Democrats who left the state Sunday. They left to prevent a vote on a new congressional map that favors Republicans in the 2026 midterm election.
Now, on Tuesday, Texas Governor Greg Abbott ordered state troopers to arrest the missing Democrats, but those warrants only work within state lines. Fox's Asher Red live in Austin tonight. And Asher, Republicans are asking the feds to get involved.
Well, Caroline and Rashi, 57 Democrats left the state of Texas Sunday afternoon, and they're camping out in places like Illinois, New York, and Massachusetts, which means Texas state troopers can't arrest them. So this morning, FBI Director Kash Patel granted Texas Senator John Cornyn's request for federal help in finding those AWOL Democrats. Cornyn is asking Patel to investigate bribery allegations because he claims the missing Dems may be illegally accepting funds to pay a $500 fine for each day they're gone. But the Democrats say their goal is to hold out until Texas's special legislative session ends on August the 19th.
If law enforcement apprehends me, I of course will go peacefully and will follow their instructions. I knew that I would be facing consequences for doing this. But again, I think it's bigger than me. It's bigger than any political party.
The Democrats purposely left Texas to break a quorum, meaning there's not enough lawmakers present to hold a vote. They're stalling a GOP effort to approve a new congressional map that could add 5 more Republican seats in the U.S. House. Right now, Republicans hold 25 of the 38 congressional seats in Texas. GOP lawmakers say it's time that the Democrats get back to work.
The reality is they are running from their duty. We have a constitutional obligation to serve the people of this state, and they have fled the state.
The voters of Texas, they don't want bold rhetoric. They want bold actions. Arrest the Democrats, bring it back. Let's get about the people's business.
And at least 100 Texas House members are required to conduct business. And now Texas Attorney Ken Paxton is threatening to remove those Democrats from office if they're not back in the chamber by tomorrow afternoon. Back to you.
President Trump is now directing the Commerce Department to create a census without undocumented immigrants. Census data is used to create district maps and allocate federal funding for everything from schools to infrastructure. The nation has historically counted every person in the U.S. for the census, and the change could make a massive impact on Southern California. President Trump tried to add a U.S. citizenship question to the census during his first term, but was rebuffed by the Supreme Court. This comes as several Republican governors push to redraw congressional maps ahead of the 2026 midterm elections.
Illinois, Chicago, New York, Massachusetts. Democrats have gerrymandered the vote beyond recognition to try to maintain their advantage in the House elections. On top of that, let's not forget, Democrats rigged the 2020 census by including illegal aliens. Remember, they sued Donald Trump. They sued the administration. They fought tooth and nail to include illegal aliens in the census. 20 to 30 of House Democrat seats wouldn't exist but for illegal aliens. Texas is taking just a small corrective step against this ocean of fraud, this ocean of abuse by the corrupt Democrat Party, Sean.
Yeah, so you see, now you heard that. Again, the census is already off. Right? You already have Democrats that are overrepresented because of illegal immigrants. President Trump wants to fix that. I'm not sure if that's actually going to work in regards to the census, right? I feel like that's definitely going to be a challenge in the court of law, right, in order to redo the census. But regardless, what President Trump is pushing is for states to redistrict. And now you have at least 10 states considering redistricting, amid the Democrats' panic and outrage over Texas deciding to redistrict in order to counter the Democrat Party and their gerrymandering, and again, the fact that the census is incorrect. So without further ado, let's get into this video from Fox News on all the states that are considering redistricting and how all of this may or may not play out. So let's get into it.
President Trump is continuing to push several states with Republican-controlled legislatures to draw new congressional district maps as Democrats promise retaliation. At least 10 states are considering redistricting. Texas is the only one so far to take action. First, let's head to Illinois, where the Texas Democrats first fled. Republicans there hold just three House seats. Democrats hold 14 seats, representing more than 80% of the state's district. But if we take a look at the county by county, this is the national result in 2024. If we go into Illinois, the county by county, Vice President Kamala Harris won about 55% of the vote, 27 points less than congressional Democrat success in that state. If we take a closer look at some of these counties that Harris carried, many are part of the same district. In northern Illinois, there are 3 counties. All 3 are separated, but they're part of one district, District 17. Further south, you have Harris winning counties that were nearly 200 miles apart, but in the same congressional district. If you take a little road trip across one congressional district in Illinois, you start down here in St. Clair County. Next stop, you go through Springfield, which was kind of a toss-up, and then you end up here. Again, throughout a nearly 3-hour drive, you won't leave District 13. Now, what we're looking at here is the redistricting across the country. Let's take a look at the redistricting that has benefited Republicans. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. He says he's considering redrawing congressional districts despite Republicans already picking up seats after the last map was created. Republicans added 4 additional House seats after the 2022 election. Critics say several Democratic seats were drawn out. Democrats won just 3 districts located around the Orlando area in 2020. Now, just 2 surround the city. Another district in northern Florida stretched from Tallahassee to Jacksonville. Those 2 metro areas are now incorporated into larger districts with more rural areas. Some Texas Democrats are now making their way to Massachusetts, where the governor there was asked about possible redistricting.
You know, isn't it a sad state of affairs that that's where we're at, okay? And, you know, Donald Trump, Greg Abbott, Ken Paxton have left us no choice. That's the reality. The
reality, as you can see, is that Massachusetts has no Republican in U.S. House members, no Republican members, nor does any state north of New York on the East Coast, despite President Trump winning about 40% of the vote across that region.
Amazing. Amazing. So President Trump wins about 40% of the vote across that region, but there are no red districts. No red district. Not one. Not one district that is represented by Republicans, despite a Republican winning 40% of the vote in that region. But Democrats want us to feel bad about what Texas is doing. They want to boohoo, whine, and cry, cheating, foul play, racism, hate, bigotry. But yet, in the Northeast, you have all blue districts, no red districts at all. And they don't want you to believe that that is a result of Democrats cheating, gerrymandering. Come on. Come on. We're smarter than that. We're smarter than that. Again, look at a state like Illinois. Illinois, 40%, 43% voted for Trump. Only 3 districts. Only 3 red districts. Even though most of the state is red. I mean, if you look at it county by county, most of the counties are red. How you end up with mostly Democrats represented in a state that, again, for the most part, is red, right? Geographically. Yeah, again, these people, Democrats, they love gerrymandering. They just hate it when it doesn't benefit them, when it's used against them, when they get a taste of their own medicine.
That region. While some Texas Democrats are in blue states such as Massachusetts, others have stayed behind. Tonight we talk with some of those lawmakers.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe.
Yeah. So you seen that, you heard that. Now, the issue with this is that in the future, if Democrats happen to take back power and control, then they're going to use this as an excuse to basically overthrow all of the rules, norms, any type of semblance of free and fair elections. That's what they're going to do if they take back power and control. And this is what James Carville, a Democrat strategist, has outlined for Democrats to do if they take back power and control. So let's go ahead and get into it.
The Democrats talk about democracy, and you have these people, importance of democracy and preserving democracy and saving democracy. Well, the truth of the matter is, people are right when they say this democracy is really imperfect. And they're going to have to do, if the Democrats win the presidency, the Senate and the House in 2028, which is not impossible. I don't know if you say likely or possible. I don't know what word you know, but it's certainly not impossible. They are just going to have to unilaterally add Puerto Rico and the District of Columbia states. They're going to have to, the Congress does give, the Constitution gives Congress power over federal elections. I don't think they can redistrict, but they're things they go do. They're going to have to do it. They're just going to have to do it. And they may have to expand the court to 13 members. Any of those things in isolation, I would be skeptical about. I would be cautious about. I would say, well, I don't know if that's the greatest idea in the world. You're opening Pandora's box, or all kinds of things. If you want to save democracy, I think you got to do all of those things.
Yeah. So basically what James Carville is arguing is that if you want to save democracy, then you need to artificially add 2 new states to the union, right? DC and Puerto Rico, in order to give Democrats more representatives in the Senate, okay, more electoral college votes, right? This is what he's arguing for. And also on top of that, overthrowing the Supreme Court. So you're talking about packing the Supreme Court with 4 new justices because they don't like the fact that the courts are overwhelmingly conservative. That's the Democrats' idea of saving democracy. Saving democracy to them is overthrowing democracy, is rigging elections in their favor, right? Because that's what they're doing. When you talk about adding D.C., which is not meant to be a state at all, right? It should never be a state. And Puerto Rico, which again is not a state. When you're talking about adding these territories or districts as states for the purposes of giving Democrats 2 extra senators per state, yeah, again, you're trying to, quote unquote, overthrow democracy. That's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. And when you talk about trying to pack the Supreme Court, that's also what you're doing. But that's what people got to realize. That's what Democrats are going to feel emboldened and justified to do if they take back power and control. They're going to do everything they can. They're going to try to pack the courts. They're going to try to make Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico a state. That's what they're going to do. They're going to do whatever they can to make sure they never lose power and control again. That's how desperate they are.
Because we just are moving further and further away from being anything close to democracy. And I don't know if it's something that they should talk about during the campaign. I guess you probably would want to, because if you have a Democratic House, a Democratic Senator, and a Democratic President, they should do that on day one. 4 more United States senators, 4 more Supreme Court members, and some stringent national legislation on how you can do Congress. They could easily pass a law saying you can only redistrict once every 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, would it precipitate a constitutional crisis? Would the Supreme Court say you can't expand to 13? Would they say that some impediment to adding 2 more states? Sure. And what they do, they'll just issue a ruling on the shadow docket saying that it's overturned, but that you got to force ahead.
Yeah, the shadow docket is supposed to be the emergency document. You only rule when there's an emergency. The shadow document now is emergencies or when Trump needs it.
Right.
And that's what they've done.
And they don't give you a reason anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, so I don't know. I really don't. But if you're going to save this country or this republic or whatever you want to call it, you're going to have to do something in 2028 because it's slipping away from us by about a minute.
Yeah. Basically what he's saying is that Democrats got to win within the next 2 major election cycles or it's over. I mean, that's what he's saying. And he would be correct to believe that. If Democrats don't win in 2026 or 2028, it's over for them. It's over. And that's why they're kicking and screaming and crying and panicking over Texas redistricting, Florida redistricting, some of these other states deciding that they want to redistrict, right? They're panicking because they know that if the playing field is level, then it's less likely they're going to win. See, Democrats thrive off of a uneven playing field, right? They thrive off of big tech censorship. They thrive off of government censorship. They thrive off of the liberal media being on their side. Again, they thrive off of an uneven playing field. And when you put Democrats on an even playing field, they can't stand that. They start lashing out. They start losing their minds because they know they can't win on an even playing field, right? Redistricting from these red states is simply just putting us on a level playing field because Republicans got cheated in the census, right? They have less seats than they should have, right? And because of that, hey, you know what? We got to redistrict. Look at how people voted in 2024. More of this country is Republican than ever before. And we got to take advantage of it, right? We have to strike while the iron is hot. Put away the Democrats, okay? We have their foot on their neck. And instead of taking your foot off the neck, no, you should apply more pressure. And that's what Republicans are doing when it comes to redistricting. That is what the Republicans are doing. And this is why Democrats are losing their minds. Because they can see the writing on the wall. If they lose in these midterms, then it's going to be really hard for them in 2028. And then after that, again, it's going to be really hard. Because at that point, I mean, without Trump, what would Democrats stand for? Right? What does the Democrat Party stand for without Trump? I think the best thing for the Democrat Party right now is the fact that President Trump is still in politics. Without President Trump, what would they stand for? What would Democrats campaign on? What would they campaign on? Hating J.D. Vance, right? Vance derangement syndrome. Would they campaign on that? Or Rubio derangement syndrome? Or DeSantis derangement syndrome? I just don't think it hits as hard as Trump derangement. And that's the biggest problem with Democrats right now, right? The biggest problem with Democrats right now is the fact that they don't stand for anything except being against Trump. And because of that, everybody knows that they don't have a way to get people to actually come out and to vote for them rather than against Trump. And when you take Trump away, what do Democrats have? Nothing. They have absolutely nothing at all. So, hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.